Oh, beef Wellington, beef Wellington, beef Wellington is waiting. What a happy night for you. I got low on that song. Oh, beef Wellington. Is there a dish more synonymous with elegance for the holidays? No, there is not. Welcome, everyone. Andrew Zimmern here. Instagram Live, AZ Cooks. Special holiday Tuesday night edition because Thursday is Christmas Eve and I want you to have all this fantastic info prior to the big day. We are brought to you, of course, by the good people at Shun Knives. Congratulations to our two winners on the Shun giveaway. The good people at Helados, Mexico, and of course, the folks at Florida Caña Rum. We have so much fun stuff to get into tonight, and I have not been this excited in a long time for a bunch of reasons. Most importantly, because this dish is so ridiculously hard to make, and so many chefs will tell you, oh, it's really easy and really simple. And it is, if you have like 10 or 12 times to practice. Like once you've done a proper beef Wellington, a proper one, and you have gotten it nice and tight, and you have figured out how to deal with the excess juices, and you've dealt with your puff pastry, and your cutting, and your decorating, and your oven, and the size pan you're roasting in, then it will work for you every single time. However, I don't know a lot of home cooks that have 12 shots at this thing, right? So I've developed a deconstructed recipe over the years. I hate deconstructing food, but I do it for this one. Deconstructing food is that thing where instead of serving bouillabaisse, you serve like 5 pieces of poached fish and shellfish on a plate, a sauce heavily reduced, usually in the form of some squiggle or foam from the broth, and a little ziggle of roux and little croutons all around. So if you scrape it all together and shove it in your mouth, it reminds you of bouillabaisse, but it's not really bouillabaisse, right? So that's deconstructive food, which, you know, there are a lot of people who do it. Not my thing. However, there's tremendous value in pulling things apart, especially for beef Wellington. Let me explain why. First of all, this dish dates back to 1815. Napoleon's army was raging all throughout Europe. Soon to be Duke of Wellington, he was named Arthur Wesley, became Duke of Wellington after defeating Napoleon at Waterloo, and the whole world rejoiced, and they named this dish after him. The reason the origins are not so precisely known is for a simple reason. This dish, boeuf en croûte, had been cooked in France for centuries. And the technique had been cooked around the world for longer than that, the idea of wrapping meat in a pastry and cooking it. So we think, food historians and anthropologists, that the dish was simply named after Wellington, and ergo this fantastic dish that we know today, one of the pillars of continental cookery. Now, certain chefs have made this dish really, really, really famous. Most notably Gordon Ramsay, who makes an impeccable one at several of his restaurants, loves to cook it, famously loves to order it out, famously has had people make it on TV on all his shows. There's a whole cult of beef Wellington around my friend Gordon, and properly so. And if you have his skill set, he makes it look so easy. I think it's unfortunate that just because most people know him from TV, most people forget what an accomplished culinarian Gordon Ramsay is, an absolute master. And in his hands, it just looks too simple. It just looks too simple. So I'm going to teach you how to do this dish deconstructed and layered so that it's super, super simple for you. The first thing that I want you to know is that there are 4 or 5 parts, several of which you can deal with ahead of time. And I've dealt with them ahead of time. The first one is a really simple sauce. In this case, I've just used a simple green peppercorn sauce. I happen to like the flavors of that sauce a lot. A lot of chefs do a green peppercorn sauce. Some strain it so that you just get the flavor of the green peppercorns. I like to have them in there. I like to garnish with chives. You can do that ahead. You can do it the day before. You can do it and pour it in a little thermos. By the way, you know all those really crappy insulated mugs that people give you for Christmas, like every company's logo is on the side of them? Those are really good for holding sauce. You pour sauce like that into it, put saran wrap around the top and set it in a warm place on your counter. It'll be hot 45 minutes later. So a really good use for those is in the kitchen. The second ingredient in there is our puff pastry. So rather than wrapping in puff pastry, and you can use this technique for pot pies, because I do it for pot pies as well, just cut circles or discs and cook your puff pastry. Look at all those layers. Do you see that beautiful puff pastry and all those layers? This big one is like a 5 or 6 inch circle. I drop it on top of a bowl of pot pie ingredients, right? You can do that with fish or chicken or whatever you'd like and put the puff pastry on top, or these small little discs or ovals that I use for the Wellington. And you cook them between 2 half-sheet pans or 2 cookie sheets, maybe with a slight weight. It depends on how much you want to press it down, how thin you want it. I still have a couple of minutes left on one that I put in there a little while ago. We'll check that in like 4 or 5 minutes, and I'll show you how to get that off of there. The really easy, fun thing is the mushroom duxelle. I do this ahead of time as well. Most duxelle recipes call for shallots and thyme and mushrooms pulsed in a food processor, then sauteed. My problem with that is that you get soup, because all the mushroom juice just comes exploding out at once. And then you finish it with a little bit of brandy, a little bit of wine, whatever you want to do to season it with. And I like a little more flavor and texture in my duxelle. So what I started doing is using the same technique that I use for my green bean casserole, that I modernized, the same technique that I've used for a lot of things, which is to saute your mushrooms and your shallots until they're nice and browned. And then I puree them with toasted almonds, a little bit of lemon juice, a little bit of soy, and tarragon leaves, and I make a duxelle that is absolutely second to none. And once you make it this way, by the way, you can make a big batch when mushrooms are on sale. That's what I do. And then freeze it in small portions. And the reason that I do that in little Ziploc bags is because I often want mushroom duxelle as part of a dish, and it's nice to have them around. So you can cook once and use many, many times. You can eat this with crackers. I mean, it's that ridiculously good. I'm just gonna dump my almonds in, my soy and lemon, which just gives me a little bit of acidity and a little bit of salt. Some freshly ground pepper, which I love with this dish. And I don't put pepper on beforehand. And if you want to put, we have thyme in the mushroom mixture, but sometimes, no pun intended, I like to put a little fresh thyme in there as well. And then I'm just going to pop this lid on, put that on. I've got it on low. And then on to high. My bowl has a, where is it? My bowl has a dent in it. And of course, I don't want to buy a new one because I want to use this food processor until it's dead. And then you can take your blade out, so you're nice and safe, and then take your mushroom duxelle, and this is almost like a panade. I mean, it's got really amazing texture and flavor to it. I don't mind some of the larger pieces of the nuts in there. I think they are just delicious with this, and again, it's more texture. And one of the things that you can do is you can take a little bowl like this that's oven proof, just wrap it in aluminum foil, and just keep a slow oven going, like at 175. You could slide your sauce, you could slide your duxelle, you could slide your puff pastry tray into a warm oven, super low setting, and just keep it warm while you cook your beef, right? So hot, hot, And this is hot already because I'm preheating it. I have two different sizes here. And I wanted to take the time to explain to you why I have this little 4¼ ounce piece of tenderloin and why I have this 6½ ounce piece of tenderloin. If you're doing lots of hors d'oeuvres and it's New Year's Eve and it's 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock and then more drinking and you're watching a movie, maybe a little bon chicka bow bow before the ball drops, then you're going to want to have a larger portion. If you are cooking 4 or 5 courses throughout the evening and you have like 5, 6 guests and you're doing something a little more special for the family or for some party post-COVID recovery, or maybe there's 5 or 6 people in your pod at your house, and you have 3 or 4 courses and dessert, go with a smaller piece of meat. Go with a smaller piece of meat. No waste, and this much beef just fills people up, right? So I have preheated my pan. Oh, I better show you my puff pastry magic. I have 2 sheets here. If I lift this off, you can see that beautiful, now that fat that's on there is from the puff pastry itself. Remember, a puff pastry is loaded with butter, right? So we just put some big discs on there for you to see how easy it is. You can cut these any size that you like and just let them cool and just flash them in a warm oven once you are done. Super, super easy and simple. So you can see we have all of our elements coming together. I am going to season my beef. And I'm just going to throw the barest amount of vegetable oil into my pan. Turn this up. And start to saute my beef. Now, this is the part that everybody loves. I'm going to smash a couple of garlic cloves here. I'm going to pull a big stem of rosemary and some thyme. And I'm going to grab a pat of butter and lay that on top of it. I like getting my mise en place ready. Get another tablespoon or so of butter on there. And you see this all the time. Again, lots of fancy chefs doing the, the butter based in the pan, show you how fast they do it, and then it slows down, right? There is not a simpler thing to do. You can master this the first time, the very first go round. Where's my little offset spatula? Oh, there we go. All we want to do is get these nice and brown. You can go very low. You're going to turn these a couple of times. So don't worry about getting the perfect crust the first time. And if you want to make the sauce in the pan and deglaze, by all means go ahead and do this. One of the ingredients in our sauce is demi-glace. A lot of butcher shops around town now sell them because they're trying to use their bones, so they make stock. homemade stock. If you're not going to make it, buy it there. D'Artagnan makes delicious demi-glace. A lot of people make really delicious demi-glace. So you can do the whole thing on the stovetop. The problem with doing the whole thing on the stovetop is by the time the meat is just right around medium rare, you want to let it rest for 5-10 minutes before you serve it, depending on how you like your meat. You've smoked out your house, right? So the way that I like to do this is to then pop this into an oven at, 425 to 475, whatever you like, for about 5-6 minutes so that it's cooking with surrounded heat, and it's going to turn out absolutely perfectly every single time. Now, let's say you're doing it on the stovetop. It's fun to put some butter into the pan and your herbs and your peeled, smashed garlic. Boy, that is some sexy food right there. And you're just going to let that cook for a while. Now, one of the things that happens once you do this is that the flavor of the thyme and the rosemary and the garlic, I mean, I can smell it, goes into the butter. And then when you baste with that herby, garlicky butter, it really makes a nicer crust on your meat. And more importantly, it puts more flavor into your meat. And that's why chefs the world over, I'm doing this in reverse so that you can see what I'm doing. Chefs the world over do this to put that extra layer of flavor onto food, and most home cooks don't. And if you have herbs lying around and some garlic that's making a hole in your vegetable crisper, by all means, have at it and let this go, right? Super easy peasy lemon squeezy. So, if we're going to build our beef Wellington, how do we like to do that? Well, first thing that I want to do is take some of my duxelles. Now, I like to put on about, I don't know, 1/3 of an inch deep the shape of my Wellington, or of my beef. And the reason, and you don't need a ring mold, you can just guesstimate it. One of the things about making a beef Wellington is oftentimes you're wrapping the beef in crepes or layers of vegetable or other things, sometimes Parma ham, prosciutto, to absorb any liquids from the beef so that the pastry stays crisp. With the deconstructed method, it works perfectly every single time. And this smaller fillet is done right now, and I'm just going to let that rest right there. I'm going to put that on the back burner and let it rest in the hot pan, right? The next thing that I want to do is I want to show you my torchon of foie gras. This was made at a local butcher shop named Lowry Hill. If you are in the Twin Cities, it's a great place to buy foie. I like to be generous with the foie gras. So the idea here is to let that, use your warm knife, let that sit there. It's going to get soft. Throw your crispy pastry on top. I like to set the sauce to one side. You don't need much, it's very strong. And then just a little bit of chive, because I think that tiny little bit of allium adds such a wonderful, just bright flash of flavor. And I love the way it sort of mimics the peppercorn shape, and I just put it in the sauce. And don't be stingy. Let people taste those fresh chives.
What kind of mushrooms did you use?
We used a combination of cremini and white button mushrooms. You can use whatever you like. The flavors that are being added to this sort of accentuate the mushroom flavor. So definitely don't waste chanterelles or morels or black trumpets or some fancy mushroom. Supermarket creminis, which are small portobellas, or white button mushrooms are absolutely fine.
Can you just describe again what you're making? Lots of people asking.
Sure. This is a deconstructed beef Wellington that is 10 times easier than the traditional beef Wellington that is so popular this time of year. We've made a mushroom duxelle. We've topped it with a seared piece of beef tenderloin. You can use any cut of beef that you like. Then put a little bit of foie gras torchon on top. That's our pâté element. And instead of wrapping the whole thing in pastry and doing it en croûte, I've made discs, super simple, out of puff pastry by cooking it between 2 cookie sheets and placing that on top. So it's more of a knife and fork thing, but it's actually pretty easy to eat through because everything is very stable except the crunchity topping there, which is great because as that cracks, it absorbs all the sauce, the juices from the beef, the juices from the duxelle, which absorb any, so you have a really clean plate around that. I just think that's like super elegant and a really, really, really easy way to prepare this fabulous, fabulous classic dish named after the almost Duke of Wellington after he defeated Napoleon at Waterloo and was named. What was the best thing that happened to Lord Wellesley? Was it being elevated to Duke of Wellington, or was it having this dish named after him, which was almost immediate? That we do know. But we think historically, as I said at the top, this cook has been cooked for hundreds of years beforehand in France and has been cooked around the world in terms of cooking meat in pastry of some kind for thousands of years. What's fascinating is that so many countries name a dish after a victorious battle or war. The croissant became popular in France after they won the very first war against, the First Crusade, because of the shape of a crescent, right, which was on all the flags of the Moors at that time after the French defeated them. The pumpernickel bread, when Napoleon went through Eastern Europe and towards Russia, he discovered this black bread, and it was offered from people in towns as an homage, because to give bread in those days in a little village was such a sacred act of kindness. And Napoleon joked, "une pomme, an apple, for my horse, pour Nicole." That was the name of one of his horses. And so pumpernickel started to be cooked in European bakeries. True story.
How do you feel about prime rib?
I love prime rib. It's one of the things that I'm making. When am I making prime rib? I think I'm doing it Christmas Eve.
Great. What's the hardest dish you've ever made?
Veal Prince Orloff. First time I did it with my dad, I was in high school. He loved that dish. Veal Prince Orloff is a breast of veal that's stuffed with duxelles and soubise, and I mean, it's a very complicated, 3-day thing. The other thing that my dad liked to make from scratch that I would make with him once a year is tête de veau, where you basically are, boiling a quartered calf's head and making a clarified aspic, and then pulling all the meat and doing vegetables and doing it in a giant bowl and then inverting it. Look up tête de veau on Google. It's an amazing recipe. And by the way, if you're a hobbyist cook and you have access to a calf's head or a pig's head, I would encourage you to do that dish. It's absolutely spectacular.
What do you think is the best cut of steak?
Oh my gosh. The best cut of steak. There are lots of small muscles up behind the shoulder that I think have the best beefy flavor, sort of the short ribs when they're cooked the right way. As far as luxury cuts, I'm more of a sort of a porterhouse ribeye kind of guy. I like the rib cap for flavor as well. Bone-in sirloin, I like. Tenderloin is the most popular of the luxury cuts. This is from a grass-fed animal. The meat is from a local butcher, and that's the only way I'll eat it because otherwise it's too mushy and not beefy enough for me. Conventional choice beef from commercial CAFO farms, I just won't eat.
What is a dish that you hated as a child but now love?
Can't remember anything I hated as a child. I was a really precocious eater. I was a shithead as a little kid. I was a spoiled little brat. I like myself much more as an adult. But I did eat everything. There was nothing that I rejected. I was raised by foodie parents, and we traveled a lot. So, I think I'm an anomaly.
Do you celebrate Christmas?
I do. I celebrate all the holidays because I love we can't have enough celebration and holiday joy making in the world. So I try to celebrate everything. And since as human beings, we all came from the same place, and I don't mean the Garden of Eden and Adam's rib. I actually mean Southern Africa. And ever since I had the privilege of being at what anthropologists believe is the first watering hole from which man walked north out of the deserts in Botswana in search for meat with more fat on it to make our brains work better, and just weeping, looking in that watering hole. I celebrate everything. There's just not enough. Now look, I don't take 283 days off from work just so I can celebrate some, bizarre, Scandinavian Saints Day or whatever. But I like to celebrate everything. So I did all the nights of Hanukkah, and I do the Christmas Eve and Christmas thing, and yeah.
You might as well just go through your menu. We have lots of questions about what you're making in the next few days.
Oh my gosh, so much. Well, it's my kid and I. So, I mean, it's not like the usual time of year. So I think I'm doing a standing rib roast. I'm doing one that's 3 ribs. It will start what's tomorrow? Wednesday. It'll start air drying tonight. I like 48 hours air drying on it in my refrigerator. And then I'll roast it. Serve it medium rare, sliced. We'll probably do crispy potato galette this year because if it's just 2 of us, it's so easy to slice the paper-thin potatoes on my vegetable slicer and make a beautiful spiralized sort of Pums Anna type of thing. I'll probably do a sauce very similar to this. He doesn't like green peppercorn, so I'll probably do it without for the beef and the potatoes. He loves asparagus, so probably asparagus. Probably, it's a holiday, so a little hollandaise, right? And who doesn't like to dip their beef into the hollandaise or the yummy gravy there? And for dessert, it's always a baked Alaska. It's pretty easy. I have frozen cake rounds, just from the last time I made a layer cake, and you just punch out circles, put a scoop of ice cream on top. Italian meringue around the outside, and I do the Zoe Francois thing once I saw her do it. I don't use equipment to make edges. I just use my fingers and pull out these strands of meringue and then just torch it. No booze, because I'm a recovering person, so while I will use wine or things in sauces, if you pour like 151 or 100 proof brandy or something onto the plate and light it on fire, the ice cream and everything melts and puts it out, but there's still a lot of raw alcohol in there, and I just don't like the taste of that.
Can you recommend any new cookbooks that you love?
Oh my gosh, what a great year for cookbooks. Tons, and actually right after the first years, we'd probably put up one of those crappy best of lists and stuff like that. But I love Nick Sharma's new book. Marcus Samuelson's new book, Rise, is fantastic. Kelly Fields' book on Southern baking is incredible. I mean, I'm leaving out hundreds and hundreds of, friends of mine who've written a great book. Let's see, what else have I really liked this holiday season? Those stand out for me as big ones. I think at the beginning of the year, wasn't it Chris Shepard's book with Katie Golan came out? I love that one. I'm trying to remember what else I've liked. I have so many cookbooks. The new Per Se cookbook is really, really awesome. There have been some fantastic cool new. I'm going to put a list out over the next couple of days. I promise you that. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll put it up on my Twitter feed because there's too many cool new books In BB's Kitchen is fantastic. The new Ottolenghi book was great. Oh my gosh. And what was, I think wasn't it at the beginning of this year that Adina Sussman's book Sababa came out? I think is technically a 2020 book. It's hard to remember because sometimes this is really douchey, sometimes I get advanced copies of a book and then I say, oh, it's a 2020 book, and someone says, that book's not out. But I'm pretty sure Sababa came out after the first of the year. And I love that. I love Adina.
So Vicky, you remember Vicky?
Vicky fled and went to Spain.
She wants to know what you think about black bean brownies. She wants to make some for her family, but they are very skeptical.
Well, first of all, in Spain, that's literally unheard of. And your black beans over there are much different than the black beans over here, so be very, very careful. And I don't believe in doing that. What's the point? Oh. I mean, if you want to put vegetable moisture and texture into a brownie, use a couple tablespoons or a half cup of whipped sweet potatoes. I can think through to that point. I cannot see the point of black beans in brownies. Just can't. Pot in brownies, yes. Black beans in brownies, no. I'm not endorsing that.
Fair enough.
But I can understand. Madeline just made batches of pot brownies for the holidays. Oh yeah, okay, fair enough. As a recovering person, I have lost the choice. I can no longer smoke weed. However, I have a lot of friends in law enforcement, and I do a lot of stuff with law enforcement, and I'm very pro law enforcement in a lot of different respects, although I do believe in defunding the police. I know it sounds crazy, but I do think we have to start over. But bottom line, I have some friends who have risen from street cop to police chief around the country. I've asked every single one of them, weed or booze, which is more dangerous? And they're all like, booze and drugs. They've never gone to a domestic that didn't involve booze and drugs. They joke with me. I had a police chief who shall go unnamed, but of one of the top 20 cities in America by population, say to me, he says, you want to know what happens when you go to a house where people are smoking weed? You walk in and there's like Captain Crunch, milk on the counter, and everyone's eating Oreos and laughing at an old Food Network episode of How It's Made. And you want to know something that's true? No one's hurting each other. So yeah, marijuana should be legal everywhere. I'm all for that.
What makes your fruitcake special?
My fruitcake? Mm-hmm. The fruits, of course. My fruitcake. Do you want to know whose fruitcake recipe I use? In one of, actually, I think it's in Zoe's new book that's coming out. But I got an advanced look at that, and I made her rum cake that she used to sort of honor her husband's family, but she mixed it with her fruitcake recipe. I think I'm getting the story right. Is absolutely out of control.
I think the one on the website is something you found in like Newfoundland or...
Oh yeah, no, that's entirely possible. I love that one, which is superb, but now I make another one which is even superberer.
Let's see here. What's your favorite or your go-to pots and pans brand and styles?
Oh my gosh. I have a bunch of arcane ones at home. I love All Clad and I love all my fancy French copper stuff and all of that. But I've replaced almost everything with, there's so many metal artisans right now who have turned to taking old pieces of carbon steel and making thin pans and thick pans that perform so incredibly once they're seasoned. And there's a whole slew of Japanese pans that are carbon steel that I use. They just perform so well. And then I have really big commercial stock pots from All Clad, their biggest size, and from Heritage Steel, because they make cladded, shiny stainless steel pots and pans in big enough sizes for the home cook, but still allows you to make 8-10 quarts of product. Let's see, what else do I have? And I just have a ton of Japanese saute pans. I just love them to death, and they're not that expensive. Well, here's the deal. It is Tuesday night. It is 3 nights before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. I'm not going to go through the rest of it, but Christmas Eve is one of my favorite nights of the year for this reason. You're not cracking gifts yet, and it's all about the anticipation of a better day to come. And I can't think of a more fitting idea to think about this Christmas Eve as we end 2020 and look forward to a 2021 that is pandemic free, that hopefully we get to work on our country together and set aside our differences and focus more on the things that we have in common than the things that separate us as differences. We have a chance at a new beginning in 2021, and I plan on taking full advantage of it. I hope you make this fantastic beef Wellington dish. It's superb. Even if you just take an element of it, like the duxelles or the sauce, or the technique of using this, if you happen to make a lot of pot pies and things, I think you're going to be really, really happy. I will leave you with one last word. We have an amazing event coming up on January 20th at 6:30 p.m. Central. I'm going to be cooking a 3-course meal, teaching you how to do it. You're going to get a Spotify playlist, a copy of the demo in your email the next day. We have some special surprise guests. We have a set being performed by my friend G Love of G Love and Special Sauce, whose latest album, The Juice, has been nominated for a Grammy this year in the blues category. He'll be joining us live to play a bunch of songs for us. The event is going to benefit the Charlize Theron Africa Outreach Project. CTOP is one of my favorite organizations around the world, a nonprofit that's doing so much to help so many in Southern Africa. And so it's a great night. If you would like to get tickets for it, right now we're offering a 20% discount as a stocking stuffer. Please go to exploretalk.com/Andrew Zimmern. exploretalk.com/Andrew Zimmern. Also on our website and on my social feeds, if you just scroll around, you'll see we have links to it and stuff like that. Please encourage your friends to do it. The money goes to a great cause. You're going to get an incredible cooking class inspired by my travels, as well as a concert from G Love and some special surprise guests that I'm telling you, you've dreamed about being on a Zoom call with these folks. Trust me, you're going to want to buy a ticket. So thank you to the folks at Flor de Caña, Shun, and Helados Mexico. It's been an incredible year of sponsorship from you guys. I can't wait to see you. We have a taped version of AZ Cooks Live where we explore the world of caviar and answer your questions. It's a really cool episode. That's coming next Thursday, 9 days from now. And then we're back live on the 7th of January with I think a homemade pizza that I think you're gonna, because I'm not one of those people that does a juice cleanse after New Year's. I go into like a pizza cleanse after New Year's, 'cause I think it's a lot healthier. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate between now and January 7th. I hope you have a joyous and glorious New Year. And please share love and light. Let's not spread hate and ignorance. Love you.